The town council meeting is reconvened. Sorry we're a little late, folks. It is now 7:25. This is being telecast or cablecast on WCAT and will be rebroadcast. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Boncory, would you please lead us?
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing. Last week we lost a very dear friend. Jim Matarazzo passed away. Jim is a longtime library trustee, but more important than that, he was a wonderful person and a real gentleman. In addition to remembering Jim, we all received the tragic news yesterday of the untimely death of Judy Moses. Judy grew up in this town. She graduated in the class of 1971. Her dad and mom still live down the point, along with her brother Tommy, who was a captain in the Winthrop Fire Department. So I'd like to take a few minutes of silence in memory of them. Thank you. The clerk, please call the roll.
Council Raymond. Here. Council Callow. Yes. Council Christopher. Council Cherry. Yes. Council Sordo. Here. Council McDuffie. Here. Council Conti. Present. Vice President Boncory. Here. President Vecchio.
Present. I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes of the April 17th meeting. So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. General information, delegates and visitors. Chief Delahanty.
President, council members, I have the pleasure and honor to introduce our two newest police officers during this month, which is Memorial Week in Washington. Unfortunately, to pay respects to those who have died. We've had 3 officers die in this region in the past 2 weeks, and the town of Winthrop is adding police officers to their security force to make sure the Winthrop citizens are kept secure. And hopefully we all pray at nighttime to keep our officers safe. But it's an extreme pleasure to introduce Samantha Peterson and Richard Farino, our newest members. They've been explorers in the Winthrop Police Department since they've been kids. They've been reserve police officers, and now they'll be moving on to full-time, fully academy-trained, full-time positions in the police department. I can attest to both of their work during the reserve period. I had time to observe them and observe their reports and the quality of work and professionalism that they present in the public. So it's a great honor. I'll just invite Deputy Chief Goodwin if he has any additional comments, and then and present the recruits.
I would just add that they just, officer students in Wales just completed 28 weeks of pretty intensive training. That's probably the equivalent to any boot camp in the military. And, I had the pleasure of observing them for probably 3 or 4 months prior as reserve officers. And I have big plans for both of them. We haven't discussed that yet. I'm sure they're going to do an excellent job.
Thank you.
Deputy? Yeah. Mr. President, we just get a photo for the transcript.
Yes.
If you don't mind, where would you like to do that?
Front, get the podium here in front of the podium.
In front of the podium?
Keep on chinning, we got this.
Chief, I'll call on you again for presentation.
Mr. President, thank you. We have a water rate on this agenda tonight after a long deliberation with the outside consultant and the town council auditor, Dick Hingston. It has become relevant and necessary to bring this to your attention that the increase in water rates will need to be as soon as possible. I asked Mr. Hingston to come here tonight as an outside source to tell us why they have to be increased, how much they have to be increased, and what brought us to this point that the increase has to be so much. So without further ado, Mr. Hingston, I know we went from a very good event to a very bad event. This is something I don't take lightly, and certainly I don't want my water rates increased either. But it's something that is necessary. Mr. Hingston and Michael Perez can address more appropriately. Dick, would you, I don't know if you want, whatever you want to present from there or here.
I think I'm okay there. You've got one of these, right?
I do.
Okay.
Am I on?
You're on.
All right. Terry asked me to ask you to give a little presentation on why the significant water rate increase would be in effect. And I know it's a difficult thing to do to increase a significant rate increase like that, but I think that there's a pretty good way to explain it all so that it's at least clear, if not quite palatable. So the handout I gave you shows the projected increases in your appropriations in the budget that was presented to you. So the total budget increase from 2018 to 2019 is $955,000, 855,843. On the right, it shows each of the major components of that increase and its effect on the rate. So as you can see, the MWRA assessments alone went up $272,000, and that caused about a 57-cent increase on the rate. There were 4 issues of debt that went out for the contract 5. There were 2 issues for the contract 5, the MWRA Center project and the Winthrop Short water mains. And those were, in the aggregate, about 92 cents on the new rate. And then there were some smaller items that are just general operational budget items that caused the rate increase. The salaries, 8 cents, capital outlay, 25 cents, and just other amounts, about 17 cents. So if you look at that and you think I rounded to that $2, but that's just how it came out. In the calculation, it's based on estimated usage, and that's what all the water rates are based on, estimated usage. And so when based on the 2018 usage, I calculated that every $479,000 in revenues needed is $1 on the water rate. So there is also a projected revenue shortfall in fiscal year 18 of over 479,000 in that range. That estimate is I think it's fairly solid based on the prior rates, and because we already looked at a billing. I was down at the DPW the other day, and we did a dummy billing for the May, and when I estimate what the revenues project out for the rest of the year, it's going to be short by over $400,000. So I think that the water rates need to increase in fiscal year 19 by $3 at least. That's just down the bottom of the page. I took the usage based on the fiscal year 18 and multiplied it by a new rate that includes a $3 increase, and it just gets your billing to about what your estimated appropriations are in current budget. That has not been adopted yet, but that's what the budget amount is. So it's kind of funny, over the past couple of years, you think you need to bill more, because your collections on the actual rates are about 88%. It was 87%, 89%, and it's in that vicinity. But because you have water and sewer liens that you collect from prior year's stuff in the current year, it always just kind of works pretty close to what you bill is what you get in cash receipts. You might only bill $9.5 million this year, and you might only collect 88% of that, but you're collecting the majority of what you billed in the last year that you didn't collect, because you lien it onto the taxes, and it gets paid that way. So I don't think there's much room in that $3 to generate free cash in the water, and so I think that that's something to really look at. And one of the things I think is important to do is do it in May too. If you're going to need it for 19, and you really need it for this year too. If you put it into the budget, into the rate in this May billing, which is why we went down and did a dummy billing, I think that that projected $479,000 shortfall for fiscal year 18 would be a little over $100,000, which still isn't good. And I think the DLS may have something to say about that when they set your tax rate recap. But it gets a lot better, and if you can show them that you made a significant rate increase, then I think that they'll accommodate you when it comes time to get these tax rates set. Going forward, I think it's really important that when the 19 to look at the two first billings. That's done in August and November. Those are your two heavy user times. And it's possible that the usage, when a rate increase happens, that usage is going to go down. And if that happens, then it's unfortunately, but it's one of the things about the water, usage goes down, you have fixed costs, then it makes rates go back up again. So it's kind of like that's a reward for conserving, but you still need to fund the budget. So I think it's important for you to do that in May, in August and November, and take a look at your revenues based on the usage amounts at that point in time. A couple of other things I just wanted to mention about when you are approving loan authorizations, that I think it's a good idea for when somebody comes to the council with a loan authorization, that they come to you, particularly with the water. I mean, I think they do this if you're coming for a debt exclusion or an override, they tell you what it's going to cost each taxpayer based on an average home value. I think that's a good idea to do too with the water rates. When you're doing a loan authorization, I think it's important for you to know what that means to the rates. So to keep compounding it. So if you have a loan authorization going forward from here, if you have a $20 rate and you pass a loan authorization, that it's going to be $20.25 when it kicks in, because they don't kick in right away. The borrowing doesn't happen. You might authorize it now. It might not kick into the rates for another 2 years, depending on the borrower and borrowing schedule. So, and if there's other loan authorizations after that, I think that they should say, oh, that 25 is now 20.25, and the next one is another 30 cents. It's going to be 20.55. So just to keep you more aware of what you're voting on and where that's going to push the rates. The only other thing I want to mention is that right now there's something called unaccounted for water. That's water that's pumped into from the MWRA, and it's not billed. And right now it's the unaccounted for water, I believe, is 21%. The DEP's threshold is about 10%. So this is like the only way to take care of unaccounted for water is through leak detection programs and more infrastructure projects. So the solution to some of your problems costs more money. So right now you're in this circle of you want to bring the rates down, but you have these projects that are needed, and that just affects more projects if you want to bring the use. Because I think, you know, you're getting, that unaccounted for means you're getting billed for it from the MWRA, but you're not billing anybody for it. And your rates went up. They're a year behind. So they track your usage for a year, and then they assess you the next year. So your usage your pump went up. That caused a $272,000 rate increase. But your actual billed usage went down a little bit. It was pretty close in 17 and 18, but it did go down a little bit. So, and I expect a rate increase would make it go down again. Happy to answer any questions.
Do you have any other good news for us?
You know, I thought I was gonna be the dark cloud guy coming in here today.
You are. No. Any questions from the council?
Yeah, I have a question on this, I'm sorry. On the very first MWRA assessment increase, so that's the MWRA saying we're upping our cost to you, to Winthrop. That's statewide or area-wide, that's not
Yes.
just Winthrop.
The
What is
way
that?
it works is we have a master meter that all of the water from the MWRA flows through, and they bill us based on that meter. And so it's based on our actual usage, but their rates are based on prior years. So they take a look at how much they billed over the complete prior year, and then they adjust your rate according to that. So any improvements we make in usage, there's a lag in when that catches up to our assessment going down. Does that make sense?
Not to me. Because their rate to us, you're saying that they will adjust that year to
So
year?
their rate isn't adjusted, but the town has a meter just like every water payer has a meter.
Yep,
It's just that the MWRA is on the other end of that.
right.
And all the water that flows through that, we get billed for. And the town has to recover that cost by billing all of the residents.
And that number went up, they raised that on us, is that
It's an
correct?
assessment, right?
Right, because the amount of water that flowed through that meter increased.
So what they pumped to you increased last year.
Right.
What you billed to other people didn't follow that increase.
So let's compare it to gasoline. So the price per gallon didn't go up, the volume of gasoline increased.
Well,
Is that fair?
You know, we don't know that because they don't tell you how much they pump and how much they just give you an assessment. So it could be a little of both. I mean, I'm sure that,
I just thought that the citizens might be curious as to how we arrived at that number.
yeah, you know, it's one of those assessments that just, you get handed, you know, it's not.
Well, it's water that's coming in, but it's also their fixed costs
Right, but
that factor into their assessment. And Chief Flanagan's here today. Do you know what the
I
percentage
think
is this year?
the rate approved by the advisory board was 3.3%.
the 3.3% increase?
That's across the board to all the communities. That doesn't, that affects the rate of the gallonage, but it doesn't
So
affect.
3.3% rate increase in
And usage.
whatever your usage.
Thank you.
Nick?
I'm wondering, am I correct in interpreting this, that we're talking about a 17% increase in water and sewer bills?
That's about what it looks like, yes.
Yeah, just historically, so people understand, I think it was 2015 or 16, we increased the rate because DOR
Yeah.
ordered us to increase it. Can you go into that a little bit? It was increased by $3, and then we brought it back down.
So
So I just wanted the
So what
historical
happened
aspect of
was at
that.
the 11th hour, and there was what they were projecting for revenues in, it was 2014 or 15, and they were projecting for revenues on the tax recaps that they get certified by the Department of Revenue, compared to what they collected in the prior year, didn't look like, it wasn't gonna make it. The DLR said, well, how are you gonna do it? Did you go up on your rates? And they said, yeah, we went up, I can't remember the number, we went up 50 cents. And the DLR did the math, and said, that doesn't get you here. And so, by that time, you only had 2 quarters of billing, because the tax rate set in December. And you only had 2 quarters to pick up whatever the number was. And so the DLS said, well, if you had a whole year, it looks like your rate would have to increase $1.50. in order to make that. But you only got 2 quarters, it might even been less, but you only have 2 quarters and at lesser billing cycles. So they said, they don't tell you, and they really frown upon somebody saying that they told you to increase the rates. They just tell you, we're not certifying your tax rate. They say, cut the budget if you want. Do whatever you want. We're just telling you that we don't think you can make those revenues. So, but it was the 11th hour. We needed to get the tax recap certified, so the tax bill could go out for January, and so the rates went up $3. And then I think that they got cut back after that fiscal year, that it made the revenues that you needed for that year, but then they cut them back.
It actually was February 1st, 2013, when the rate went into effect. It went up to $18.05 at that time, the combined rate. So we were, you know, a little bit over, I mean, we weren't that far off from where we're trying to get to now. But again, as Dick mentioned, we chose, well, the Water Commission chose to bring that rate back down. You know, it's easy to look in the rearview mirror and say, well, we probably should have stayed at that rate. In most municipalities, they increase their rates gradually each year. We haven't been doing that. That's why we got this extreme rate change now. But it was $18.05, and it was back in February 13th.
Thank you, Steve. Any further questions? Yes, Nick.
So you have a series of line items on here about what each cost is.
Yep.
And I noticed that for one of them, other is listed at $82,500. What is other?
That's just a whole group of things that are in your 2019 budget that, I mean, I could identify them, but.
$82,000 seems like a chunk of money that
Yeah,
you know it comes from.
There's a bunch of line items in the budget. You'll see small increases in supply lines, purchase services lines, salaries.
I isolated salaries.
That salary is kept separate.
Yeah.
So, but costs do go up from one year to the next.
And for context, it's on a $10 million budget. So I'm not saying that $82,000 is insignificant. I'm saying that relative to the other costs, it's smaller and it's spread out among several things. So rather than having 5 costs listed at $15,000 each, it's just one. Okay.
Terry, when do the bills go up, you know?
They have to go out next week. That's why I felt it was important to come here tonight.
So we need to
before
vote
those-
about this tonight?
No, you have no jurisdiction in this water rate matter.
No.
The water commissioner, which is the town manager, adjusts the rates as he or she sees fit, with the advice of the outside consultants. I don't think I have a choice. I think we are too late in the year to close this gap by layoffs or reduction in force, and Mr. Cal has been consulted, and they don't have a big water department down there. So, you know, we have water main breaks all the time. If we cut employees, we can't address people's concerns. We have outflow issues in several areas of town. So I have no other option but to increase this rate. And again, my concern is the rate increase does not get us any reserve. It brings us so close to the line of next year's budget. The next town manager, whoever he or she may be, is going to have to look at that even more seriously because we have no capital reserves. So we have a pipe break. Water and sewer reserve account cannot handle that. And it's because we use some of these reserves when we did projects throughout the last 3 or 4 years. Correct, Steve? And correct me if I'm wrong.
Covered for the loans taken out of the reserves.
Just real quick, as I look at this, like there's an annual license cost that went up 22,000. There's a reserve fund appropriation went up 10. Property insurance 5, and general repairs 5. So it's all, you know, things like that that kind of, you know, sometimes you look at these things and you'll say, how can that add up to 82,000? But it does, you know. So it's just.
Any further questions by the council?
Yeah,
Sure.
I just have so to relate this to the ratepayer, the water, you know, the homeowner, how much would you say year, is it gonna be 3.3% of their entire bill is gonna go up, or
No, I think it's more like a 17%.
it's a 17% of their entire bill?
Yeah.
Okay.
And again, the more people conserve, the higher the rate's gonna go. So it brings us into a quagmire that people want to conserve to lower their bill, but it increases on the other end.
Councilor Sir.
So I just had a question about, like, most other municipalities you mentioned have a yearly increase.
Well-
Because it seems like what we're doing here is a huge shock to the people who maybe are living on fixed incomes, where we're ping-ponging back and forth to, okay, the rate's really low, and then we have a deficit, and then we jump really high. Is it that most of them would just have a more gradual percentage increase every year?
That's typical to have a more gradual increase, you know. I've had like different people that have different mindsets on it. They say, you know what, we prefer to go up once every 2 or 3 years because, you know, there's gonna be a cry about it, and do they say do we want an annual cry about it, or do we want, so it's like, it's a judgment, but each town has to make it. My opinion is that it should be an annual one. Right.
And the current year's budget was built under the assumption of a rate increase that the prior water commissioner elected to not act on.
Council President,
Yes.
we just touched on reserves. Can you let us know, Michael, what are the reserves in the water and sewer?
So the current retained earnings in the water and sewer is only $46,000.
And stabilization, Mike?
The capital account for water and sewer has 344, so that helps.
And just so you know, we're facing right now a deficit of $479,000 for this fiscal year, which we were going to increase the rate, but it's also going to take a majority of that money. $100,000 has to come out of somewhere in that account to offset us, to make us whole for this year. So that numbers that you're hearing is going to be decreased by $100,000.
So I was just thinking for the people who are here and watching at home, as a point of reference, when we had that water main break, that was up on Washington, Pleasant last year, like how much did that cost the town?
It wasn't a water main break, that was the sewer project, collapsed sewer main. It was approximately $250,000 in an emergency. That was paid for, though, majority of that was paid for from leftover sewer money from contract 4. And then the reserve account kicked in another approximately $40,000 to make that. Yeah.
Anyone else who's hearing?
Mathematically, it's like a 17.7% increase.
Okay, thank you for all that good news.
Mr. President, are we discussing Senate business tonight? If we're not, I'd like to release the auditor. We do pay him hourly. I'd like to watch that budget. So he'll stay if we have questions on financing. If we're not going to discuss that, let's release him.
Okay,
Yeah.
Release him? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Hingston.
thank you. Okay, we have a public hearing on 3 items. Terry, can you give us an overview on these 3 items?
Absolutely, Mr. President. These 3 items are contract and negotiations, a 2% pay raise for DPW employees, fire employees, and the lieutenant's union in the police department. We did have a Finance Committee had a hearing earlier tonight. These 2%, we did some of our research, and on the police aspects of it, I'm more familiar with is we looked at joint labor management decisions. We looked at comparables to comparable communities within the same region and the same scope of police services, and the 2% raise was an adequate raise that we could establish. The unions have agreed to it. The unions mentioned have agreed to the 2% raise. That would bind them to June 30th of this year. We do have a reserve account that was voted by the council last year that these raises would come from. So it's already budgeted money that would fit this negotiations. Again, I'll be happy to answer. I think it gives time to the new town manager to adjust himself and to start negotiations with the unions for a longer-term contract.
Thank you. Okay, so the public hearing, town council transfers $49,000 $200 from the reserve fund appropriation to the fire department, $23,800 from the reserve fund appropriation to DPW, and $5,900 from the reserve fund appropriation to the police department. Does anybody wish to be heard? For or against? Any questions from the council? Hearing none? Oh, we have a question.
I can say it now.
Wait a minute, we have a question.
Just,
from the
not a
council
question,
here.
but just to go over, the Finance Committee did meet this evening on these three matters. These negotiations, as the chief just said, this is retroactive back to July 1st of 2017. So this is a one-year contract that ends June 30th of 2018. So this money is to bring us current, basically, to 2018. As of June 30th, 2018, they will start negotiations again.
Okay. Anybody else? On that note, I'll close out the public hearing. Public comment. Yes.
Hi, my name is Marie Finn, and last year we went to many meetings about the tennis courts, and I know the tennis courts are on tonight. I hope that you vote to redo the tennis courts. We have over 50 tennis players, which probably is one of the biggest teams that we have in Winthrop. And not only do the tennis players use the courts, but because we only have one gym in 2 schools, and 3 classes are in the gym at a time, as soon as the weather is nice, you probably have over 200 students a day using the courts. The phys ed classes, special needs, alternative program, they all use those courts. The courts are not conducive for us to use down at the parks. They have gone down there, kids cannot concentrate, pucks, rocks, things are coming over the fence. There's no bathrooms there. It's not fair. Every team is at the high school. Those kids need to be at the high school. We've been at the high school 2 years. We've had big events at the high school. Everybody seems to park. When we opened up the field, they found parking. So please, 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 do the right thing. Get those courts repaired for all the students at the high school. And like I said, it's just not both teams that I'm here for. I teach phys ed in the elementary. I have one class of elementary students in a gym same size as the high school gym, minus all the bleachers. And my kids use that whole gym, 24 little kids. Can you imagine putting 75 kids in that same size adults in that gym? We really need those courts now. And on the weekends, you go down there, a lot of the gentlemen, ladies that are down there, they've been going down for years. They don't want to go down the park. They're fighting kids to get off the courts. Dogs are running in. They can't play them. So please do the right thing, and please do those courts over. Thank you.
Thank you, Marie. Anyone else? Yes.
I'd like to speak a minute about the Larson rink and the logic of keeping Larson rink out of the middle school site development. First off, let me explain why I'm here. I'm very active in the Larson rink community. I served as Winthrop Kentucky president for 6 years, over 6 years in the rink committee, and I'm a renter of what you would term pickup hockey for over 10 years, and I'm a member of the middle school site development committee. With that being said, let me tell you a little bit about Larson Rink and its community. I know you're aware of a lot of what I'm about to tell you, but it's very important to the big picture. Larson Rink is an enterprise fund, which after years of neglect, has in the last 5 years taken a tremendous turn, and there are a number of reasons for this. First, strict community oversight by the Rink Committee and its chair, Councilor Jim Lettieri. Second is the rink is well managed by Bob Demento, who has initiatives and ways to maximize rental hours and increase the income yearly. Third, and most importantly, Larson Rink is supported by its local community. The most important aspect of the rink is its uniqueness. It truly is like no other rink around. Winthrop residents have always had a strong passion for skating and hockey. Larson Rink is in fact virtually 100% used and supported by its community. All pickup hours are used by residents. Winthrop Youth Hockey has grown to include teams at every level and has won 4 championships in the past 8 years. Boys Winthrop hockey team remains a perennial winner. Just this last year, the girls team, also were regularly successful, ended its co-op and became Vikings girl team. Larson Rink also hosts a number of great fundraisers throughout the year, including Wounded Vets, Stephen Acone Scholarship Tournament, and the Miracle on Ice Tournament, to name a few. The bottom line is Larson Rink is a hugely successful part of the fabric of this community. My deep concern is there's a lot of talk of a new rink, and I think that's wonderful. I would love a new rink. I'd love a new community center, and I'd love a new public safety building. The problem is, if everyone involved takes an honest look, responsible look at the town's financial situations and the ability, you can plainly see that this is not financially feasible, even with selling off the middle school property for condo development. That revenue will fall short of what is needed. In the end, if you look at this clearly, with a short-term plan for a new rink, there is only one way to afford it, and that would be for a private company to own it and build it. The reason for my concern is the word privatization has been used in the Middle School Development Review Committee meetings. Mostly comments have been, well, we will have a rink. Whether private or not, we will have a rink. To me, that is a problem. There has been no commitment to keep the rink public. And if the new rink is public, the cost would be astronomical to the taxpayers. It is not feasible to think that all the money can be raised privately while also keeping the rink public. We have to be and should be honest about this. If a new rink is private, this would mean the town loses all its input on use and local use would virtually disappear. How do I know this? It's simple, just look at the other private rinks around us. We currently have a petition of more than 50 signatures, which will turn into the town council, asking that we below, signed members of the rink community, would like to offer a more responsible solution, keeping Larson Rink out of the middle school development. Supporting the rink we have by moving forward with the rink committee's plan to build new locker rooms, which will make Larson Rink more marketable to tournaments and events. Then set up a committee with a long-term solution of banking the yearly revenue for the rink and seeking funding through grants and assistance for a long-term, fiscally responsible solution to build a new rink or refurbish the one we currently have. Most importantly, keeping it our rink and keeping it public. We ask you to consider Councilor Terry's motion to remove the rink from the middle school site development project. We ask you to save Larson Rink. Or, if you are moving forward with a new rink, commit now to a vote to keep that rink public. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a reminder, please state your name and your precinct number. I may know you, but a lot of people don't.
Good evening, it's Sylvia Whiting, Precinct 6, I think. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to address you this evening. I'm speaking to voice my support that the town of Winthrop officially established the Diversity, Inclusion, and Accessibility Commission. Many neighboring communities have established human rights commissions to ensure that the mechanism is in place for employees and residents to show and voice their support of basic human rights, the right to a workplace and community free from discrimination and hatred, a place to offer a forum to voice concerns if such discrimination occurs, and a way to establish a mechanism to educate the employees and general public of the need for a supportive, non-discriminatory environment. Winthrop has experienced some incidents of hate and discriminatory actions directed at women, along with the Jewish, Hispanic, Muslim, and African American residents of Winthrop. One incident is too many. By establishing the Diversity, Inclusion, and Accessibility Commission, you are making a strong statement that hate has no home here. A statement that is the first step in making sure that discrimination does not take a hold in our community. It is my hope that the Commission will look at the needs of all of Winthrop's residents, ensuring that those needs are understood and met, that people of color in Winthrop will feel welcome in our town and be encouraged to fully participate in town government, that women are treated fairly and that all faiths and segments of the community know that we are accepted. In light of the recent lawsuit against the town of Winthrop on behalf of a female employee, the Massachusetts Commission Against Discrimination and other legal entities will be taking a close look at our town to see if action is being taken to make sure that this does not happen in the future. Establishing the Diversity, Inclusion, and Accessibility Commission will be viewed as a positive first step by the MCAD. The next steps must include establishing a clear and concise policies of non-discriminatory practices and comprehensive training of all town employees to ensure fair and equitable treatment. For example, sexual harassment and diversity awareness training. Most surrounding cities and towns have a Human Rights Commission or similar group that addresses diversity, discrimination, and promotes education in their towns. The DIA Commission in Winthrop would give persons who have experienced discrimination a place to tell their story and be given resources for coping with discrimination. It is imperative that this initiative take place from the top levels of our government, the Town Council. As a recognized government, we must ensure protection of basic human and civil rights and unity. This is a positive first step in combating a climate that could take hold without such action. Thank you for supporting this extremely valuable initiative.
Anyone else wish to be heard? Mr. Riley.
Thomas Riley, I live at 30 Cottage Park Road in Winthrop. Thank you, Mr. President and members of the council, for the opportunity to address you. Remarks today have to do with the Center Business District zoning. I today filed a petition with the town clerk for sufficient signatures to advance the issue of some amendments to that zoning statute to go before the council. Process also involves the council seeking a recommendation from the planning board relative to it. As you know, there's been lots of discussion over the last several months, and it's getting more and more heated in some instances about the efficacy of some of the changes that were made in 2014 to the Center Business District. Some people, for various reasons, were unaware of their adoption at the time. Perhaps they should have paid more attention to all the publicity and notices. But at any rate, they now have seen, I think a lot of it began when Banner went up with the centers saying that one block down there could be converted to 20 residential units and 10,000 square feet of space. It's a 15,000 square foot lot. It just isn't reasonable. People started getting anxious and started looking into the matter. So I thought that it would be appropriate to have a formal discussion as to what really ought to take place and what the pros and cons of various components of the Center Business District zoning. What I ask is, there's 5 components to the petition. I'd like you to take them up one at a time. The reason is I think we ought to focus on each individual one. Is the height requirement appropriate? If we leave it open-ended, we're going to go off on all kinds of tangents. We're not going to focus on the particular matter. So if we can take them up one at a time, I think it would be a more productive and a more efficient method of dealing with them. But I leave that up to you. I don't want to, I made the decisions about a lot of things that happened at the council years ago, but I'm leaving it up to you people to do it now. I did send a letter, I'd like to read it, that just describes the various components of it. Dear President Vecchier and town council members, a citizen's petition has been filed with the council seeking amendments to the zoning ordinance relative to the Center Business District. Proposed amendments address the following. There is a complete omission of a density standard in the CBD as opposed to those in effect for the remainder of the town. Petition seeks a density requirement of 1 residential unit per 2,000 square feet of a parcel. This mirrors that in place for other multi-unit zoning. If you don't mind, I'm going to sit there. Arthritis in my hip is acting up. Present dimensions for side and rear yards between the Center Business District and the immediate abutting residents are 15 feet each. The petition seeks a standard of 50 feet, which is consistent with the zoning in effect for multi-unit buildings throughout the rest of the town. The 2004 revision of the zoning ordinance permits a height of 4 stories or 48 feet. Petition seeks a change to 2 stories. The Winthrop zoning ordinance in multiple sections contains language citing an intent for development that is compatible with and enhancing to the character of surrounding homes and businesses. The 4-story buildings, especially when combined with a non-existent density standard and what we believe is an unreasonable and insufficient parking requirement, would have the effect of diminishing the remaining homes and businesses. The Center Business District ordinance requires only 3/4 of a parking space for each unit. Petition proposes to amend that to a realistic 2 spaces as required for all other multi-unit residential properties. A next-door neighbor to the CBD and living in a 2-family house is required by the ordinance to have 2 parking spaces per unit or a total of 4. The next door building is required to have 3/4 of a space for each unit. The discrepancy between the two standards is unjustifiable. Zoning ordinance permits a multi-unit developer to avoid any parking provision and paying the town of Winthrop a fee of $2,000 each required space. The proposed amendment would repeal. Again, the petition requests that the matter be taken up individually in order to have a meaningful dialogue for all interested citizens. Thank you and all the officials who will be part of this coming deliberation in order to meet our mutual goal of a reasonable and productive development for the benefit of the community.
Jack?
Thank you.
Brian?
Jack Dowd, Precinct 3, Mr. Chairman, Council people. I'm holding the 151 Pauline Street response from the town attorney. It was given to me last month, and other people have it also. It wasn't addressed to anybody. It wasn't dated. But I just outlined some details. The title examiner was Marsh Moriarty on and Rolls at PC. And the property they described, I believe to be turned over to go into the Center Business District. It's described as 7.55 acres. It goes on to say that therefore I conclude, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but therefore I conclude, in my opinion, that the premises are not subject to Article 97, and that the premises are not subject to Article 97. It says it twice. I don't know why it says that. And it's not signed by anybody. I can understand why. And it goes to a map of the premises in the area, and the map seems to be altered. It's not an original map. You see it was overlaid. I'm concerned about that. And the second map is, you can't read it, so it's not, you can refer to the maps to tell you what it is. And then it goes on, and was given to me, I believe, comes out of a book of deeds, and you can't read that either. It's very small writing. The first couple of pages are light and with ink, and you really can't read them. And so, and I talked to you about this, Ron. I wasn't very happy about the way that this was presented. First of all, it's not addressed to anybody, and second of all, it's not signed by anybody. The last sentence, therefore I conclude in my opinion that the premises are not subject to Article 97, and it says, and that the premises are not subject to Article 97. It said twice, but it's not signed by anybody. So who do you refer to have a discussion about?
Our legal counsel does not discuss matters with the public. We pay them for our legal advice. We did forward Mr. Dowd what our legal attorneys did. We had no obligation to do that since it's legal advice, but in transparency, we wanted to be fair about it and under consideration of his presentation at the spring forum. So that was an email that was sent. There was an email with a name on it from the person that we could sell with. So I'd be happy to have a discussion with Mr. Dowd when he comes up.
No, thank you. My concern is that it seems to be done in haste, this report. I gave the information that I was going to present to Mr. Bonacori on Thursday before the town meeting. And I think this was done between that Thursday and the meeting.
He's been working on that for quite a while.
It would have been simple enough to put a date on it. Thank you.
The email does have a date on it.
The reason I'm here is because I have concerns about parks. The tennis people became concerned that the tennis courts were going to be taken down and used for parking. I went to the town hall and I asked the then town manager if there was a process to go through to change the use of parkland. He told me it wasn't really parkland, it was undesignated town property. Well, through the Freedom of Information Act that I wrote, had like 3 times, I got the town manager to admit that, to use that term loosely. There's no such term as undocumented town property. And then we found out that it was, with the help of the tennis group, that it was very much documented. That's why I'm talking here today. It seems that nobody wants to look up documents, unless they're in haste when somebody is going to talk about it at a meeting. So I did my own research, and I found in the town meeting minutes, because, you know, the attorney said, in my opinion, a search of town meeting votes of the town would be necessary in order to clearly determine the purpose of the acquisition for school purpose. However, in the event that these votes cannot be found, it's reasonable to assume that since the property was the site of an existing school building and the takings were for school purposes, that these acquisitions were also for school purposes. So I'll give a little explanation. And then it says, please confirm that the premises not include any portion of the playground site for any use of the playground for park purposes. So they're concerned about using the property for other uses.
Are we still talking about Pauling Street?
No, now we're talking about Pauling Street. I get off the tennis courts. I hope that's going to be resolved.
Try to, your road will be at 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Try to skip it up.
Talking about 141 Pauling Street right now. And so I looked at the town meeting minutes from November 20, 1902. And that's the information I gave to the committee before I ended up the paperwork at the meeting last month at the forum. And it's hard to read, but it states that Ingleside Park will be used forever as a park in accordance with the law. This is in a town meeting minutes from 1902. And we find that the land described in a deed authored by the Ingalls contains 7 acres of meadow and 2 9/10 acres of upland, which is what the article in the Boston Evening transcript said. 10 acres of land donated by the Ingalls, the deed, and 3 acres of town land exclusively as parkland. And it further says that we take the land under the Park Act, that's why they're going to use it for parkland, and to acquiring the land, park, and playground for playground purposes. So it does say in the deed, the town brought the land in the Park Act to be used as playground, parkland. But the land other than that needed for townways and parkways shall forever be used as a park in accordance with the law. So I think my concerns are justified. We come to the meetings and we find that you have a committee on committee to put in a crosswalk, so to speak. But yet, we have no committee to understand why you have contradictory opinions for Ingleside Park. I've yet to hear from anybody the concern about Article 97, disposition of land. That hasn't been discussed. I went to the planning board, tried to discuss it there. They said they want no part of it. I informed the committee to build whatever they want to build down there. I forget what the name of the committee is. They want no part of, going through the process of Article 97, disposition of land for parkland. It's a state law. I'd like to have a committee set up, citizens group, to discuss these contradictory opinions.
I think the town manager, okay, I think the town manager made it clear that if you'd like to meet with him, he'll show you.
I'd like a committee set up, citizens involved, so that everybody understands. If you don't want to go through Article 97, disposition of land, there should be a committee set up to have everybody understand, not myself and the manager, everybody in the town understand why you have contradictory opinions of Ingleside Park.
We'll take that under advisement, Jack. Yes. That lady.
Get over to the middle so you can see you. Get over to the middle. Get by the microphone. Cheers. Get up this
Please try to limit it to 3 minutes.
Get in line.
Problem, I hope. Mary Mahoney, Precinct 3, live on the point, right on the 800 block for the last 45 years. First, thank you, Nick Conti, for settling our metal plate that flew at us ever since DPW quitting time last Thursday. Awesome, we finally got some sleep. My precinct in general is concerned about transparency, forward thinking, where our money's gone, and we all really want to know what Mr. McKenna, because some of you weren't even involved in those decisions. However, this is an easy one. Since the tall ships last June, and preceding that, the DPW and whoever dug up between Ural seawall and the street, not talking the beach, okay? The rats came out of everywhere. We called immediately thinking tall ships, visitors, it will be important not to have rats, concessions, etc. I have a whole list that I won't bore you with, but from June 14th all the way through August, things like Steve's not available, Sharon's on vacation, da-da-da-da-da. We finally got 2 traps, 4 houses apart, and 3 guesses. By that time, now we're talking August 2017, rats coming through our barbecue grills during the day, rats running between our kids. This is not a quality of life that I'm paying for, never mind the water, the taxes, whatever. This is what it's been down there. The coyotes I love. I'm sorry they're coming through my yard, but they are taking some of the rats with them. We need help down there. When we called and got any answers, it was carry on, carry off trash on Ural means people take it to their car. So you put 3 barrels there and you think people are taking it? No, they're not. Ipswich had the same problem. They got rid of the barrels, put the sign up. We asked, could you at least cover the barrels? Too expensive. This isn't just me. This is my stretch of the neighborhood. Next answer was, could you at least, since we are the busy beach in town, pick up what people leave because they don't understand barrels aren't to be used, whatever. Could you at least pick it up with the cute little trucks that comes around? Don't do that on weekends. It is rat banquet over there. It is rat banquet on our street. It is rat banquet in our sewers that have big holes in them. We went through all last summer, on an average, every home spent about $150. New barrels, rat poison, rat traps, rat preventative, unacceptable. Now, in case you want it, it's here for you. Pictures of my car from Pride Hyundai in Lynn, because guess what? The rats got into my engine and ate my filters. This is not quality of life. I don't know how bad it is in the rest of the town, but if you want to know why the coyotes are out, it's because that's their favorite food and they're greedy now. And frankly, I don't have a problem with coyotes, but the rats could be killed. I'd like to know where the money is. Is there a health department budget? Come on, there's got to be something. 2 traps, 4 houses apart, from a whole summer of a neighborhood saying, literally, you want to sit on, oh, and the house next door to me sold for $550,000 in their first get-together on their nice patio, the rats went through. This is an infestation, this is unhealthy. We'd like it addressed, without doing all that again. Thank you, and thank you all, some of you weren't here for it, so I don't blame you.
John next.
Stephanie Recchia, Precinct 6. You've heard me talk before about One Winthrop and the creation of a Diversity, Inclusion, and Accessibility Committee, so I am here again this evening to voice my support for that and to echo the words of Sylvia. I really want to say thank you. Thank you to all of you for putting together a statement that was published in the transcript last week condemning discrimination and making it very clear that you're committed to working towards creating policies and procedures that continue to voice your commitment to ensuring that there is no discrimination of any form in this town. Committee that's proposed, and I do hope that you'll take the time to vote on it. It doesn't take that long to vote on forming this committee. Thank you to Councilor Lizardo for continuing to move this forward. I know that there are so many important matters before you and that there are such big things that this town is grappling with, but this committee is incredibly important and can do so much for the town. This is not an angry minority that's trying to push anyone out. We're really about trying to include all people and making sure that everyone in our town has a voice and that everyone's needs are met. So I just want to say thank you.
Thank you. Sean? John, you next.
Good evening, couple pieces here. First, I want to speak as the Parks and Recreation Director of the town. I just want to tell you, since October of 2017, we've taken over the gym, which is right next to last rink, and I feel what Steve's saying, the same thing he's saying, I'm saying about the gym. We've done quite a bit of stuff there in 2014 and 15 as far as preparing and getting ready for it to be a high school. And now we've kind of taken it over. We've got a lot of access and a lot of use, not only for kids, but for adults. We brought people in from other towns for leagues, tournaments, things like that, basketball, people, coaches. And it's been an asset for the town. My big concern is, one, Mr. Lettieri, asked for a discussion on it and didn't get a second vote, so I'm concerned where that's going, because part of the deal with that, we are housed behind in the old building. We're the only people in the building, and want to get a direction. I've been the Parks and Rec Director for 20 years, and I think this will be some type of move again for the third time. And I know there's not a lot of money, and we're probably down on the picking line, I get it. But at the same time, I think there has to be some discussion. Because just not to second it, I think I've never seen that in all government since I've been involved here with it. So that is concerning to me. I understand that you don't want to separate the parcels, but the rink and the gym kind of go together. We're housing 2 hockey teams, girls hockey, boys hockey from the high school, that also helps them out there as well with locker rooms and other facilities, coaches' rooms. But it is a concern, and I hope it gets discussed eventually and come up with some type of conclusion on what you're going to do with that land. We've known it's going to be vacant now for some time, and it's still kind of out there, but we are getting great use of it. The kids appreciate it, the parents appreciate it. We're doing a lot of birthday parties, a lot of different things there. And if you go onto our website, winthroprec.com, you can look at the calendar and see how many things are really going in there by hitting that facility. So that's one of the main things I wanted to talk about. My second part to this is, I'm also a resident, as you know, Sean Driscoll, Precinct 5. Live down on Pico Beach, and winter's been tough. And I'm hoping, again, I haven't heard much discussion, any solutions on what's going on down there. It only sounds like it's going to get worse as far as flooding, the backup, all that. And again, I know money's tight, but there has to be some type of study or something done to try to help us out with that. We had a couple of neighborhood meetings about it and trying to find which direction to go and looking for direction. I mean, I always go to Steve with stuff like that because we work together and he's got some thoughts and ideas, obviously, but at the same time, that has to get looked at, okay? It's out of control. Been in a hotel all winter in East Boston for 10 days between both storms, and it's not a good thing, not a good experience. So if anything help we can get from the town, the wall down there is a wooden wall, for those guys that are familiar with it. If we can just get a cement wall up here, something to help us out. It's a little crazy how it's set up down there with the rest of the weather predictions throughout the Northeast the next couple of years. So I appreciate your time. Thanks for all you do. But I hope you really take a look at both things I talked about tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. John?
Thank you, Council President and members of the council. My name is John Vittoriano from Precinct 5. I'd like to talk briefly about two issues tonight. I would like to totally reinforce the comments that Marie Finn made earlier about the value of the tennis courts opposite high school to the town of Winthrop. I was at the hearing about a year ago in the auditorium, and time flies, I guess, but here we are again. That was an eye-opening presentation to me about the value of the tennis teams and tennis players in this town that frankly I wasn't aware of. Marie Finn has done a fabulous job as a coach of the tennis teams in this town. They are a real tribute to this town. We need them, and I know from my own professional experience that the traffic and parking issue that may or may not be associated with that general part of town could easily be solved without converting the tennis courts into a parking lot of any sort whatsoever. There are a number of options available to that. Strongly recommend that the town make the investment that is required to redo the tennis courts and bring them up to the standards that Marie Finn knows much more about than I would. Would also like to address a item that is in your agenda tonight regarding a text of a motion submitted by Councilors Lucerto and Engman addressing the need in the town for a full-time planner. Long overdue. This is not a cost for the town, this would be an investment for the town. Given all of the issues that have been discussed not only tonight, but have been discussed over the past few months of the critical issues in the town. What about the middle school? What about the options for the middle school? The discussion that Tom Riley had earlier about the petition to redo the zoning for the Center Business District and so forth. What about, for example, a site that will be appropriate for a new fire station if required? And it looks like a new fire station does need to be required. These are critical decisions that really do need to be made in the context or by the function of a full-time town planner. A town planner, by the way, that is not associated with a project developer, so that there's no, so that there is not a possibility of having a potential conflict of interest between a planner who might be associated with a development team that would actually become involved in the development of one of the projects that are on the table right now. So again, strongly recommend, totally endorse the submission by Councilors Lucerto and Eggman as being in the best interest of the town. It will be a low-cost item, it will be, but a major investment in the town. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Good act to follow here. Bob Carroll, Precinct 6. I'm a member of the Planning Board. I can't say enough how important it would be to have a town planner here in Winthrop. Being on the Planning Board for over 6 years, I got to tell you, we're on our back heels all the time. Whatever information shows up in front of us, we try to do our best. Having some filter before information gets here not only helps the Planning Board and the town in general, would also help people that are trying to invest in the town, trying to make their businesses better, or trying to bring business to the town. So right now, I understand it's a sort of, well, I guess in the last year or so, and hopefully it gets included in this year's budget. Mary McCann, who's actually a senior planner at Woodard and Curran. Woodard and Curran is also the civil engineer that's doing the center. But I think as long as her tasks are very specific, about trying to do things like a developer guide, which would act as a checklist for potential applicants before the planning board. Things like that would be so helpful. It would cut down on the needless kind of back and forth and having people spend more time with lawyers and architects and civil engineers to keep coming back in front of us over and over again, and the perception about how we are slow in anti-development. We are just slow because people show up with half the things they need, and we just ask them to come back. It happens almost on every project, sometimes more than once. We do our best to try to make it better. I think she could also alleviate some confusion, I hope, by being able to do things like organize the town website so people have better access to information. I think it is, I'm glad the discussion is going to happen about the center zoning. I think it's a little sad that we have to petition each other to make conversations happen. I wish we could use our energy to have more forums like we did a couple weeks back, where we could focus on issues, bring expertise to the table, and try to find common ground and move forward. You can't zone by petition. It's not going to work out well if we just sort of take one item at a time. We need to think holistically. We need to have people at the table that think holistically. I do have faith in Mary's abilities. I mean, she has a good planning background, good school, and some good experience. But I do think there are limits to what a contract person can do on a sort of as-project basis. And so if we have a developer show up, she could analyze that and make sure the developer is organized for the town and make sure the planning board is prepared to deal with whatever specific issue. But I think it's that big visioning and forum that really needs the town council, with the help of the planning board and other boards, transportation committee, et cetera, that really needs to happen, so we don't keep sputtering out with the next new idea every few minutes. I'm so for this, and it's just because I think kind of public opinion of government in general is at an all-time low. I'm sorry that you all are sitting here and taking some of this heat, but I think you deserve props for putting that letter in the paper about how you're going to, again, try to have as much transparency as possible, understanding that you're going through litigation right now on certain issues. I think that's true also for our vision for the town. I think everyone wants that transparency. Everyone wants to have a seat at the table. The folks that live near the center, the folks that want to see this town change, move forward. The town is ripe for some change, but not ripe for a bulldozer. Nobody wants to do that either. I know there's all sorts of ideas getting people excited about rinks going public and private. We should be having those in a forum and not on Facebook where we're individually freaking out. We should be talking about the goals of those things, or turning Ingleside back completely into a park, what that would do for us economically. We should have that conversation, but it should be daylighted and in front of all. Thank you very much for your time.
Christine Bernstein, Precinct 6. I just want to reiterate what Marie said and John Vitagliano said regarding the tennis courts. It's been quite a while since we started with this process, and I think it's been proven that parking is really not needed. The parking is adequate. There's oftentimes space available. And something as simple as, for example, the Drama Fest was just in town last weekend. Last year, I had signs made, and I had them made again this year. I put an A-frame out on the sidewalk. It directs people for parking behind the building. And I was standing on the corner, and I could see people actually at the corner acknowledging that they were reading that and going behind the building, because someone from out of town wouldn't know to drive behind the building. Actually, a lot of people in town don't know to drive behind the building. So, thank you.
Jim Murray, Precinct 6. I'd like to talk a little bit about our twin threats, the multi-billion-dollar authorities at each end of town. One down Point Shirley and one on the harbor side. How do they help us or don't? We get approximately $800,000 apiece in pilot payments from them, and it's not enough. We signed a 10-year contract with the MWRA, or PACT, in 2015, and it's not enough. For some reason, we signed a 20-year pact with Massport in 2004 for $800,000. It's not enough. I'm going to start with the MWRA. I'll make it quick. I won't keep you. As the storms worsen and Shirley Street floods all the way down to Lewis Lake, how will their supplies be trucked in? When Deer Island has 25-foot walls, like a fortress, you've all seen it down there. It was never like that, but it is now. They remain dry and safe behind their walls. What are they doing to help us? Where are our walls? I know they can't do anything on the rates, but they sure can help us in other ways, especially with climate change. Now, Massport. Where to begin? Massport, I was at the airport committee the other night. They say there are friends and neighbors. That's how they approach it. While they embark on a never-ending spree to build and add terminals, people, cars, more pollution, more parking spots, they run ads in the newspaper touting their resiliency in climate change, and they add flights and millions of people and thousands of parking spots. Is that a bad joke? They tout they're building barriers for the runways. Well, if they build their barriers for their runways 2 or 3 feet, and Deer Island has their 25-foot walls, where's all that water going? Where's it going? It's going to all your backyards. It's going down the point. They're adding 7 new gates to the international terminal. It's for jumbo jets. Now, I know we get used to the airplanes that we don't really pay attention to them like visitors. They look up, oh my God, an airplane. And we just go, yeah. But these are jumbo jets. 7 more gates. They're estimating just the international terminal alone is going to go from 5.5 million to 8 million passengers. That's what the gentleman told us the other night. They have permits for 5,000 more parking spots. 5,000 more on top of what they have. But they're for climate change. Does that just sound not right? So here's the other thing. When we signed our deal in 2004, and this is right out of the state economic report, 2004, Massport made $576 million receipts right after 3 years after 9/11. And they got us, our town, to sign a 20-year deal, and we got 800 grand out of 576 million. And then we signed it for 20 years. I don't think that's a great deal. I'm not a math major, but I don't think it's a great deal. Now, fast forward 10 years later, 2014. Again, this is their report from the state. This is their report. Massport's up to $847 million in profit. We're still getting 800 grand. Now, they like to say we're their neighbors, we're their friends. I don't know. I think they can afford to help us out a little bit. If they're going to build barriers and force water back into our channels off our own land, that taxiway, remember, is Winthrop land. They need to help these people. Just like Sean Driscoll, my mother lives on Sunnyside. The water comes right up to the edge of the street, right across the street from the marsh. What are we going to do? I suggested the Speaker of the House, 3rd most powerful man in Massachusetts, Senator Vaughn Corey on the Transportation Department. If these people are our friends and neighbors like they say, pony up. Help us. You don't help us on the tunnel, we pay full price. You don't help us on the sewer race, we pay full price. Your walls are destroying Ural Beach because of the waves coming around. You're destroying the point, but they're our friends, they're our neighbors. I have a hard time believing if we approach them in a professional manner, as friends, as neighbors, they wouldn't see the wisdom in making sure Shirley Street doesn't flood out all the way to Lewis Lake so they can get their trucks in. That's in their best interest. Or Massport, with their runways, they want them high and dry to fill 30, let's see. Here it is here, 2016, 36 million people. 36 million people in and out of Logan Airport. That's up 7 million from just 5 years earlier. It was 29 million. And this is from the director. Logan's 2 main challenges are expanding Terminal E to accommodate more international flights and, wait for it, adding parking. So that's climate change right there, resiliency, right there in the transcript. Nice pictures, how they're saving the world. I don't know, seems like double talk, but I would urge that the council speak with our state representatives whoever we have to, appeal to these people as neighbors and friends. And, you know, a 20-year deal is a long time. A lot of things change. They're doing very well, 500 million to 800 million. I think they can do more. What they're doing is not enough. It's not enough. And I won't even get into the fact that they poison us every day with those things going over us. Of course, the study came out and it's good. But thank you very much for your time, Mr. President. Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Good evening, thanks for having me. My name is Dean Dolores, Precinct 1. Thanks for all you do, I appreciate it. It's quick, I know it's getting late. Basically, I'm here, Sean gave me a call about the gym situation over there at the 112 Main Street, and I just want to let you know that gym, I run a basketball program over there, and we have about 80, 90 kids that are involved in the program. We do it all year round. It's used all the time, we use it a lot. Every time I'm there, before I get in there, there's always a group in there, and when we leave, there's a group, like the Zumba class, it's always being used. We just need something for these kids to do. And in Winthrop, we don't have that many basketball courts. We have the new high school that was just built, the middle high school, but there's only one gym, really, one tactical basketball court in there, and it's always being used by all the sports and all the athletics. And I get it. We go to other communities around, you know, North Shore, everywhere, and they have plenty of gyms everywhere. They have places to practice. We're coming over here in Winthrop to practice. If we're practicing with our team, it's usually like four teams in one gym, or sharing courts. So, I mean, I get it. There's not that much space here, not that many gyms, but all I'm saying that if you guys are going to be doing a project, and you know, I'm a realist, I know the numbers are low, and we need to get some revenue in town, I get it. But if you're going to do something in that area, just kind of maybe include a gym or a rec center or something of that nature. Keep the gym. Just keep the kids in mind, because in Winthrop, the winters are very long, and the kids don't really have anywhere to go and do, and we use that all winter long, and it's great for them to get a chance to get in there and play birthday parties and whatever Sean was saying. He's absolutely right. It's definitely used a lot. The second reason I'm here is regarding the taxes in Winthrop. I'm just a little concerned. I'm not here to complain. I'm just saying I'm a little concerned about the way things are going. My taxes went up from fiscal year 17 to fiscal year 18, almost $2,000. I have 4 children in this town. We don't mind paying all the athletic fees and this and that, whatever. We do our part. Overrides for schools and for fields, and it's our pleasure. My wife and I are not from here. We grew up elsewhere, and we love this town. We love this community and everything it has to offer. And what it is a community, and it's great. I mean, we go to the market. I can have like 10 different conversations. We know a lot of people in town. It's great, and you guys are all great. But what we fear is why we left. My wife's from Staten Island, New York. I grew up in Stamford, Connecticut. A little bigger, obviously, but it was a very community-oriented places when we grew up. And what happened was the taxes started going up and up and up, and it started pleasing a lot of the people that were living there out, and you lose your community that way. You lose everyone. Like I go back home now to go visit my parents. My wife goes back home, and we know nobody. And I just don't want to see Winthrop go down that road. That's why we love it up here. We left that to come here, and we like the community sense. We just don't want to see everything get kind of phased out. People can't afford these taxes when they get people going higher and higher and higher. But that's all I got. Thanks again for letting me speak. I appreciate it. Have a good evening.
I want to first of all thank President Vecchia and all the councilors for having us here tonight. I would just like to, first of all, take a little bit of a stance with the tennis courts. I truly believe in what Mrs. Finn said tonight, that court has to stay. It's being used by phys ed classes, special needs classes, 50 tennis players. It's something that's paramount to the town. We saw what happened when we had the great game on Thanksgiving. There was no issue with parking at all. And I truly believe it's a huge asset for the town, where we have to stop making parking lots out of athletic places. So I'm a big proponent of it, and I hope the council makes the right decision on that. Second of all, I want to make this quick. Sean Driscoll does a fantastic job with all his recreation programs. Dean Galoris, he's fantastic. You should go down there and watch these kids work out. He's a volunteer. They make no money at all.
And I took the chief down there one day, he saw what was going on. There's a lot of activity, 5th, 6th, 7th graders. Then he does that for an hour and a half, then the high school kids come in. So I think it's very, very important because I'm actually a volunteer coach. I've been a volunteer coach for years. We go to these other communities. We play these teams. We go to Danvers. They have 6 basketball courts at the Danvers Sports Place. They have another 4 at the high school, 3 at the middle school. We count up the courses with 15 basketball courts in Danvers. And we're such underdogs. And I think it's truly important, as the other speaker said, that maybe we should keep the rink and keep the basketball, the recreation center as one compound and make sure we keep those because it's active, it's constantly being used, and it's very, very important. We know we have all types of issues that go on in town with our youth, and one way we keep them busy, and I know it was for me, a guy named Manny Catino ran that program for 35 years, okay, down at that recreation center. He would be down there at 9 o'clock in the morning, he would go home at 4 o'clock, have a little supper from 4 to 6, come back and open that up on a Saturday night from 6 to 9. That gym is just so important, and I truly believe even if you build another facility, you're not going to get a high school gym that size. And the last thing I'd like to talk about is I'd like to thank Mr. Murray, Mr. Riley for his comments, and all the speakers tonight. I think this has been great, and this is democracy in action. Thank you.
Anyone else who's to be heard? Okay. We're going to correspondence, which we do not have. Committee reports. Finance.
Finance Committee meeting met this evening before council meeting at 6 o'clock. And we discussed the 3 motions that we had talked about earlier. They all involved appropriations for contractual agreements with different departments in town. Again, as I spoke earlier, these agreements are for fiscal 18. They expire, they will conclude on June 30th, 2018. The 3 motions were taken unanimously to come back to the council with positive recommendations. Just for the public to know, the money's coming from these. It's $49,200 for fire DPW, fire department, $23,800 for DPW, and $5,900 for the lieutenants union at the police department. This money comes out of the reserve account. That's a line item in the budget that we put in at last year's budget, and the amount we put in there was, I believe, $345,000, of which none has been used year to date. So that is not an appropriation that has to be raised. That has been accounted for in the budget. And we did come with positive recommendation on all 3.
Anything on Miller Field?
Yes, Miller Field met on the 23rd of April. The majority of the discussions revolved around the field house. There was some discussion on, as we have a little bit of time there, we realize things that we have to tweak or whatever, and there's an area when you walk in on the visitor side, which is where the shot put area is, and we're going to be putting a 4-foot fence around that area to prevent people and kids and whatever from walking into that area. Also, there was a lot of discussion on the field itself. The field has a cork fill within the turf, and it has to be spread around. A lot of it's done just by activity from the kids playing there, and a lot of it is supposed to be done by a company that will be coming back. They did do what they could do in the fall, and now they're coming back. They should be here, weather permitting, Friday, and they will be using rakes, which we're asking for, along with tractors, to just kind of even out the fill that's in there. So if you're looking from the stands, you look down and you should see looks like a manicured lawn, and now there's still some brown patches, which is the fill that just has to be spread out evenly. So there was talk about that, and the major talk was about the field house, and the plan with the field house has always been to have the Northeast Vocational School is to build the field house, and they would save us on the labor. We would still pay for materials. It's been an ongoing process. It's a project that they've never undertaken, the depth of the project, and there's talk about just the delays that's been involved, and we feel a time frame for the vote doing this is potentially not until to be finished and occupied not until September of potentially 2020. So we're talking about different options with that. And there was another meeting, May 9th? 8th. And these meetings are all public meetings. The meetings are at the high school in the principal's conference room. And that was it from the Miller Field Committee.
Well, while I have you.
Well, we'll go in. We had a precinct 2 community meeting held at the Lyceum Room. There were approximately 58 people there, including Councilors Boncory, Lacerdo, and Caller. There was multiple discussions on a lot of areas of town, obviously mostly focused on precinct 2. A lot of talk about the dog park and the neighborhood's lack of interest in having a dog park in the Ingleside area. There was a lot of talk, much talk on the middle school and the redevelopment possibilities there. There was a lot of talk about the rink in the auditorium, which I did not have time or forgot to put on the agenda, but I will be putting on the agenda for the next council meeting to have discussions again and to ask for the rink and the auditorium to be taken out of the middle school project, and I will have plenty of documentation supporting that. There was also talk about Belle Isle Boat area and the flooding and some incidents down there in the marina, and also flooding at the end of Morton Street. So it was a very productive meeting, lasted about 2 hours. And again, I thank Councilors Boncory, Lacerdo, and Cala for being there for support. And you know, I think these community meetings are a great idea, and I encourage, as all councilors are doing now, I encourage them to continue.
Very good, Jim. Appointments, commissions, and committees. Michael. Sure.
Sure. So appointments, commissions, and committees met, and we had really 3 big things on our agenda. One was to review the council clerk position, the job description. So we started that process. We have the draft of that, and we hope to finalize that job description at our next meeting. It was also called to our attention that the town clerk reports to the town council and was asking for a review, since there seemed to be some confusion about whether or not the review was coming from the town manager or the council. So that's under advisement right now. The other piece, since we were looking at all of the various different town staff that report to the council in this committee, we started to do some research on the review process for the town manager. So to get a sense, we contacted all of the other municipalities in the state of Massachusetts that have the same form of government as we do. So the town council, town manager form of government, to see what kind of reviews that they utilize for the town manager, because the town manager in our form of government is the most powerful person in town. So we've received a number of those various different review processes. I will be sharing them with the rest of the council. The committee has it right now to take a look at what other towns are doing to review their town managers. Some of them, which I thought were really great, were goal and objective oriented measurements. Say, you know, tied to the budget. If we're funding X, our expectation is we reach this goal. Did we reach it? Etc. So we had some really great documentation there. Typically, the other towns, their review process was quite long, and I think this is the direction that we would like to go in. Our current review process is 2 pages, and a regular town employee has an 8-page review. And then everybody else, every other town manager has the same form of government, has a 15 to 20-page review. So we really got to beef that up. As I mentioned, it's the most powerful position in town, and it's really important for accountability purposes to have that review. The other piece of appointments, commissions, and committees that I'd like to report is that as chair, I'm trying to reach out to all the various different committees and at least attend one of their meetings to establish a connection with them. So I also met with the Commission on Disabilities here in the Senior Center. They had some questions about their account, which I forwarded along to the town manager, and he did give me a very quick response to that about what that is, and I will be attending their next meeting to let them know all the information that I gathered.
Very good. We have community dog park meeting.
Yes, Mr. President, we did have another dog park meeting on the 26th at the Town Hall, Room 2, which was very well attended. It seems that a majority of the attendees were concerned about the notice in the transcript that referred to the Wheelock Street location as a consideration. And quite a few people were there against that. Nick LeConte was here with me, and then the citizens on this group that have been together for almost 5 years. The goal of the last 2 meetings, and this meeting is no different, is to try to empower and direct as best we can the citizens to formalize their group with some figureheads in different positions and create subcommittees within that group to take care of construction, fundraising, research into the acceptability of different locations. And it appears that they're down to 3 locations, 3 primary locations that they want to exploit and exhaust the possibilities of using those 3 locations based on usability and acceptability to the environment, as well as the costs involved with each one. The 3 locations that seem to be agreed upon is the DPW site, the Lewis Lake location, and the Hannaford Park location. Based on those 3, we're going to try to determine what's best for the town, and I know the dog committee group will work aggressively to be good neighbors and good friends and support whatever the decision is. I don't know if Nick had anything to add that I might have left off. Thank you, Nick. And so we plan to meet on a 2-week basis. We should be meeting again in 2 weeks.
Thank you, Michael. Town manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. President. As you noticed, as you come in tonight, my budget has been submitted. It is a balanced budget as required under the charter. It was due to deliver it to the council no less than 60 days before the start of the fiscal year. That being said, to being delivered today reaches that goal. And also, I think it's important to point out, the council forthwith upon receipt shall schedule a public hearing. Not less than 7 days, no more than 14 days following such publication will hold that public hearing. So I urge the council to direct the clerk to post a public hearing for either the next meeting or a special meeting as you feel appropriate. Also, just so you can get 40A, Section 5, upon receipt of a petition filed by 10 members of the public or less, or more, excuse me, you must forward the petition to the board, to the planning board for their review of any modification of a current zoning plan or law. I would urge the council to take action tonight to refer that petition out, since it has been received by the town clerk's office and has been forwarded by email to the council. The 14 days, I don't think anyone's, for 15 days, anyone's going to trigger us on that, but just there is a statutory obligation. And this petition shouldn't be taken as an offensive act. It is the way that the law requires people to amend zoning ordinances. So I think the neighborhood has been great working with us up there, and I think they'll continue to be great working with us in the modifications and before it comes to the full council for their approval. The budget, I'd like to say a few words on the budget. Again, it is a final budget and a balanced budget. Is it the perfect budget for us? No. Tough decisions had to be made during the budget process. Would we like to give the schools more money? Sure we would. We would like to give the police, the fire, and DPW more money or capital expenses that they requested? Absolutely. But the fire department is in a critical moment on turnout gear. Some of their turnout gear is too old for some of the firefighters. We had to withdraw it, but we have to put a capital request in on a motion to come out of stabilization, because those officers, firefighters cannot be trained because their turnout gear is too old, so the academy will not train them on in-service trainings. So that's critical. DPW, we know what position DPW is in with their dump trucks. I had to withdraw it from the budget to balance the budget. It's either equipment or personnel, and we chose to do equipment and then handle that through a capital process to see what we can afford to buy. The police cruiser, I took no exceptions. The police department lost a police cruiser that's funded each year. in the budget. Snow and ice, we would need to increase snow and ice. We averaged budget about the 130 the past couple of years. It's really a $300,000 bill that we manage in that year. By the end of the fiscal year, we have to pay that off. So we have to take the money from somewhere during that year process. You know, IT personnel had to be cut back as they requested an additional half a person from part-timer to make them a full-time. That had to be cut. So there was tough decisions to be made. The school department asked for $1.1 million to have level services from this year to next year. We could only afford to give them $800,000 out of new growth and new revenues. Certainly schools are, you know, we need the schools. We need the protection of the schools, and we need the school teachers. We understand that, but there is only so much money to go around, and we have so many needs. These tough decisions will now fall on your lap. Again, you can, you have to vote the budget, amendments there too. I had to eliminate the planner, even the contract planner, for $30,000. Something that I know we need and that I support. And certainly I've been trying to reach out to MIT and Tufts to see if they have a fellowship program like we do with Harvard to help fill some of the gaps. Even if you get a full-time planner, you're probably going to need a fellow or an intern for that person to work with. So we're trying to be creative. We're trying to create an environment where we can get where we need to get to. But again, their money is so finite. The increases here are so finite for the no more than 2.5% can be raised. And new growth is certainly something that we don't have an abundance of. So having said that, I know we'll have a public hearing on that, and we'll be certainly meeting with the Citizens Finance Committee next week and the week after. Before your full public hearing, and you'll get their recommendation on the budget as well. I'll be happy to answer questions now, or you can save them to after my report. The center sidewalk cleaning, Steve Callow will be doing a center sidewalk cleaning that'll take place at night. Well, cars are off the street down there. That's the most effective way. We're looking at bike sharing locations now. I urge the council that we start reviewing some ordinances, or send the request to Rules and Ordinance to start reviewing that. We're working with the citizens over on Sunnyside Ave about the public space and land that's kind of congested and has some falling branches on it. The Winthrop event last weekend was very successful down Deer Island, their walk. It's always something that we enjoy doing with them. The DPW fueling station is fully back online, so we're no longer buying the gas from a private vendor. Contract 5 continues to be on schedule. The spring cleaning for cemeteries are underway from the DPW. I just want to congratulate the middle school drama club. We're getting a gold medal this weekend, and certainly we're very proud of them as my daughters participate in that program. So MVP workshop recap, 1.5 hour recap of a day-long workshop is scheduled for May 8th at the E.B. Newton School. Rabies clinic scheduled for June 2nd. Environmental bond bill, I just want everyone to realize that we have submitted a request for the Speaker's office for the environmental bond bill to address Pico, some stuff on Morton Street, and also Ingleside Park. Those were the 3 critical areas that we wanted to try to get some financial money into it. There's MVP funding now that we went through the MVP process. Funding is now becoming available, and since we completed the process, we'll be in good stand to get some money, hopefully, that we can utilize down in the Point Shirley area. So we're trying to diversify our revenue streams and trying to get as much money as we can from the state from different areas. That would conclude my report, Mr.
Joe, could you just kind of elaborate on just to bring people up to date on that program?
The MVP program?
The resilience.
Yeah, so the MVP program, we got $17,000 last year to do an MVP plan that the state, it's a new program, the state just started it last summer. We're one of the first communities to get the money to do the planning. And as a reward for that, as long as our draft report is completed by the middle of May, which it should be, we'll be in line to apply on May 18th for a second round of funding that could fund projects, feasibility studies, permitting, different things that come out of the plan. planning process. We're going to be in a little bit of mad dash here the next couple of weeks with the consultant to help identify, both from the MVP plan and from some of the other plans we've done in the past, like the critical infrastructure vulnerability assessment, the town's pre-disaster mitigation plan, to identify a project that would have a good likelihood of being approved. It's going to be a competitive process. There's only about $4 million available in the fund. They are allowing you to apply for up to $400,000, but with 70 communities potentially vying for that funding, you want to make sure you're asking for a project that you have a chance of getting. So we're going to be working with the consultants to finish the report and apply for the grant.
Yes. Town manager, I've had some people in the precinct ask about a storage container that was placed behind the middle school. My understanding is this is the school's storage container that is, my understanding is it's housing hurdles and some equipment for the old football field and such, some refrigerators from the field house. I don't understand, we have a 200,000 square foot empty school building there, why we need a eyesore of a storage container placed behind the middle school. So I would ask if we could maybe take an inventory of that and ask if that's something that's really needed to be placed there, or really anywhere in town for that matter. But I would ask for you to get an inventory list of what's in there and if it's items that they plan on using. Because if we're in the middle of building a field house and they're saying that they have refrigerators and such that they're going to use, it will be equipment that we won't have to purchase. So get an inventory list and to see if that's really needed to be placed there. That would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Yeah. I just wanted to go back. I forgot to mention under appointments, commissions, and committees that in that committee we also talked about the Diversity, Inclusion, Accessibility Committee. We presented a number of different commissions that some of the neighboring towns have started as a model. A lot of the discussion revolved around whether or not what part of these commissions we are already maybe touching upon in other committees to make sure that we're not creating something that duplicates efforts. Is it more coordination? What needs to stand alone? Et cetera. So we are doing our due diligence with that and reading through a number of the other commissions that have been established in neighboring towns to figure out what might be the best model for us.
And then you'll make a...
And then we'll make a recommendation to the full council after our next meeting.
Anyone else? Okay, the school department report is very short. Most of the meeting was really around questions about fees for lacrosse, to lower the fees because they felt that they were much higher. I guess it's a new program. They had no idea what the costs were going to be to rent out Miller's Field. So there was a discussion about fees for lacrosse. And there was a very lively discussion about the new bus schedule, which the school department is working on, because they went to a privatization because of the problems that they had basically getting drivers and the upkeep on the buses. So there's more information will follow on that. Under old business, we have 3 motions to transfer. I'm going to take all 3 at the same time. Town council transfers $49,200 from a reserve fund appropriation to the fire department. Town council transfers $23,800 to the reserve fund to DPW, and town council transfers $5,900 from the reserve fund appropriation to the police department personnel budget. These are all to settle union agreements. There's no second because this comes out on a favorable recommendation. So, any discussion on the motions?
Just for clarification, it looks, when you see and it says coming from a reserve fund, this is not coming from a capital stabilization fund or a fund, it's coming from a line item within the budget. So it's not coming, we're not taking money out of a stabilization fund to pay for a raise. Just want to make that clear.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Why don't we take, because it's for a pay increase, why don't we take a roll call? For all 3.
Council Amos? Yes. Council Cowell? Yes. Council Christopher? Council Lettieri?
Yes.
Council Soto?
Yes.
Council McDuffie?
Yes.
Council LeConte?
Yes.
Vice President Boncory?
Yes.
President Vecchio?
Yes. Next item, town council appropriates $4,931,500 for the purpose of financing the construction of the town center. This was tabled from the last council meeting. Anyone wish to be heard on this subject? No?
On the table.
We'll move to continue it.
We'll continue the table. Kick it down the road. Okay, the Winthrop High School Middle School tennis courts. This was another thing that was kicked down the road last year. Let me see if I can find the motion.
And the clerk has the motion, Mr. President.
I have it here.
President Becky, have you?
Thank you. Okay, on January 16th, the motion by Councilor West Sanford to move that the council vote to remove the demolition of the Winthrop High School tennis courts at 400 Main Street and construction of a parking lot in their place to be removed from the scope of work for the Miller Field project until such time as needed, but such parking facilities at the location can be studied and the council votes to reinstate such demolition and construction work or take any action thereto. Does anybody wish to be heard on this old motion that was passed? Councilor Boncory.
The motion was tabled indefinitely, I believe, right?
So what do we have to do to settle it?
Council President?
Yes.
I would make a motion that we take the destruction of the tennis courts off of the scope of work for the Miller Field project permanently.
A motion has been made to take the demolition of the tennis courts, replace with a parking lot off of the project. Does somebody second that?
Second.
Okay, we have a second. Discussion on the motion. Anyone want to discuss? Nope. I'll take a vote.
Mr. President, just before you do that, if we're doing a project there, what project and under whose jurisdiction are we gonna put this under? I slightly disagree with some of the public comment. We've had events that we've had parking issues, we've managed those. I feel confident in the police department to continue managing those. But I just want everyone to be clear that of my position would be, we can manage the parking. It's gonna take a group effort to manage that parking. But if we're gonna keep these tennis courts, we need to put it, I believe, under the Mills Field Committee and have them do the proper repairs, and the fencing and the surface, and look at the drainage of that area as well, because it can't continue in the current condition.
Well, I would agree with you that really the Miller Field should have the authority to do it because it was money budgeted for the destruction of the tennis courts, and the building of this beautiful parking lot. I think it was like $4,000 or $400,000. So obviously, it hasn't been done, so the money still should be in the Miller Field project.
Comment.
Jim?
The money, I can report that the money is still in the Millerfield project. The scope of that project, though, and I don't have it with me, but if you look at what the debt service was for, or that debt exclusion, it was for 3 specific items. Now, we could definitely, absolutely take off the project to demolish and build and build the parking lot if we want. I do not believe we have the authority on that debt exclusion to use the money to redo the parking, because not only would you have to redo the tennis courts, which is feasible, but if the parking is to remain the way it is, which is head-on into the fence, I think that would have to be addressed. Also, the scope of the project include lighting and included sidewalks all the way around, from Main Street all the way around up to Ocean View. So, you know, I think the town council has an absolute right to finally say that a parking lot at this time is not going to go there. If that's what they choose, it's not what I believe, and it's not what the people voted for, but that's fine. But I do not believe that the Miller Field Committee has the authorization to use that money for anything other than the Miller Field project. Potentially, if situations remain in a state of flux with potentially the lack of the ability of the vote to potentially do this project in a timely manner, we would have to potentially, again, look into the possibility of building the field house ourselves. And in that case, we potentially could use some of those funds to do that, which we have the authorization to do. So it's just careful about it. You know, the debt exclusion was for 3 specific items.
But I think there was a big discussion about that. There was a big controversy about what the question said.
Well, the question we have, and I don't have it with me, I know I have a copy of what the council voted unanimously to have the ballot question say. But that's a fact, that's in the minutes, and I have a copy of the motion. I just can't find it right here, but I can get a copy of the motion.
So we have checked with bond counsel on this when the prior motion was brought up, and it is entirely within scope to, it's possible to remove items from the project without jeopardizing the Prop 2.5 exemption, but you can't add something that was not included in the original question. If there are surplus bond proceeds after the project has been completed, then those could be reallocated. But if they're reallocated to something that is not a Prop 2.5 exempt project, which unless there is another vote in order to make the tennis courts a Prop 2.5 exempt project, then that would have, the debt service would have to be funded on the operating budget, which we don't really have room for.
Now, I understand the tennis courts are playable. You made some corrections.
They're playable for this year, but, I mean,
Needs some work.
I think we need to, if we remove this, we need to sit down with the superintendent and do a memorandum of understanding on care and upkeep and who's going to have what times and everything else. So
Yeah, but that's
Because it's
I don't want to complicate
the
the
town-
motion, but I think there's issues that we have to all get on the same page and straighten out.
Yeah, I think we can pass this motion to do away with the demolition motion, and then at some future time, appropriate money to fix that tennis court or do whatever else you want to do. I don't think you have to do it both together. It's separate.
We could absolutely do that, but there's really no need to do that because it's been taken off the plate of the Millerfield Committee. So even if the Millerfield Committee so choose, they cannot, destruct the tennis courts, nor is the plan to do that. It's, so I don't, there's been a motion to suspend it, to take it off the scope of the work. So, I mean, there's all the right to pass another motion, it's kind of redundant, but there is a motion already that has removed it from the Millerfield Committee.
What this motion is to not destroy the tennis court, period.
This was just to delay it, the last, the old motion.
Yeah. This is to permanently quash that motion.
Right. Council President, if I may, I think that, my understanding is that the tennis community was looking for some finality about what was going to happen to those tennis courts, and so that's the purpose of my motion, to just make clear that the tennis courts are not going to be demolished. We will have to figure out how and if we can pay for repairs and how those courts are going to be used at a later date.
Any other questions?
I was just going to agree with Councilor England. I think what the public is asking for us is whether or not that's going to remain a tennis court or not. So regardless of the past motion, I don't know if they need affirmation just to say that we're going to reserve that space to be a tennis court, to be maintained, or to be determined how, whatever fund we're going to take out of it to maintain it moving forward.
Okay. Any other further discussion on the motion? We'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? No. The ayes have it. Do we don't have a recommendation for dog park location time, is that correct?
No, we do not. We believe that will still be about a month or so away.
Discussion on the marijuana special election. Chief, could you kind of give us an overview of what we need to do?
Sure.
We took a moratorium, we did a moratorium on any action.
It was a motion, I believe by Councilor Ingram, to believe December of 2018, have a moratorium so the town could exercise their rights as to what they wanted to do with the marijuana question. Winthrop did vote yes on the marijuana question. Therefore, if you want to restrict it, it needs to be a special election vote. It cannot go on the state general ballot question, and the marijuana law specifically says it has to be its own separate election. So Councilor Ingman, I think is more articulate as to what we need to do on this.
But is there a motion? Was there a motion on the floor?
At the end of last year, the council voted for a moratorium on any marijuana dispensaries until December of 2018. And the thinking, at least my thinking at that point, was that we could put any question on the state ballot in September or November. And that was an incorrect assumption at that time. The council, the town clerk has since made clear that we have to have any marijuana question on a municipal ballot. And I think that the decisions that we have to make are to do nothing, which is a decision, and then that would allow marijuana dispensaries to come into town following when the moratorium expires in December. We could vote as a community to prohibit marijuana dispensaries altogether, or we could vote to limit the time, place, and manner of marijuana dispensaries in a manner that is stricter than the state regulations currently set. So we need to have a special election unless we're going to do nothing. And so my thinking at this point is that it would be very helpful to start, a review and analysis of the existing state regulations, analysis of potential revenue, and put in place a plan for a community hearing or a forum so that residents have an opportunity to voice their concerns before the moratorium just expires in December. So we certainly don't need to make any decisions tonight, but I just wanted to make sure it was on the radar so that we can get a plan in place over the next couple of months to make a purposeful decision on how we're going to respond to this issue.
I think we need to have some type of I agree with Councilor Engel, we need to have some type of a forum to get the input from the community, see which direction they want to go.
Well, see, the problem is that the community voted for it. So to ban it, they have to have another vote and vote against it. There are 2 ways to go. Right now, we have a moratorium until December, so we don't have to take any action. But we should be thinking about whether or not we want to create a marijuana zone like most of the other communities have, or whether we restrict it, make it very restrictive, or not. So maybe a forum on the issue of marijuana would be the thing in place, so we hear from people in the town and get their opinion, even though they have already voted that they want it.
Okay.
I think if I could add to that also, I think it would also be helpful if we could get sort of a review and analysis of what the state regulations are and how that might fit into Winthrop and things like that. And I don't know if that's something that the town manager's office would do. I don't know if that's something that would be appropriate for a town council subcommittee. But that's another decision to think about how we're going to sort of gather the research and inform ourselves.
And just the only restriction on zoning at this current time in our zoning laws is the Southern Business District. That is it. So zoning definitely needs to be addressed at some level.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? Okay. So we plan some type of a forum on the subject, similar to what we did for several weeks ago. The discussion of a full-time town planner. Anybody wish to be heard? Mike will serve up.
So this was a motion I tried to make last time, and I really think it's important that the town of Winthrop invest in a town planner. And I think everything that we have seen, a large majority of the public comment at every meeting since we've started, has been people who are concerned about some type of action that a town planner would own for the town. Whether that be zoning, parking, heights and setback restrictions, design guidelines, the ferry, Hagman Road, pretty much everything that has been a big bee in the bonnet of everyone would be addressed by this person. And I think we owe it to those people who have come to have a professional person look at this, because otherwise all this conversation that we have about the middle school and the center project and the ferry is really just opinion. It's just my opinion versus someone else's opinion. And without the professional person who can address people's concerns and say, you know, your concerns are validated, and advise the council to say these are the steps that we should take. Or, you know what, these are concerns and we can address them, or these are concerns and they are a critical need for us to pay attention to. That this is a really important piece. And in regard to some of the other public comment that we heard tonight, the middle school site is maybe a microcosm of our town as a whole at the moment. And when we were looking through the original EDCAC meetings, we started off where everyone was in their own camps. Park and Rec was over here, and the hockey community was there, and the arts people were over there, and the developers were over there, and people who were interested in more money for the schools were over there, and they were all demanding their certain piece. And by the end of all that community vision, we brought everybody together and said, well, if we could have everything, this is what it would look like, and this is what we should strive for. And the master plan said #1 step was to hire a town planner to execute this vision. And we haven't hired the town planner, so we've sort of fumbled on several of the other things that have come up since then. We have problems with the zoning, people talking about the ferry, the Hagman Road thing. And while all this has been going on, all those groups have defaulted back into petitions to pull off their piece of the puzzle. And we as a community are stronger together. Whether that's us up here on the council, people in the audience, different stakeholders, we're all stronger together. We don't have that key person to give us the right information we need to make an informed decision, still to this day, even though the master plan was passed about a year ago. So I think when we're talking about potentially losing millions of dollars of grant money because we still don't have that key person, the 75 to 100,000 for a full-time planner is a really good investment for this community. And that's all I have to say.
Any other comments?
Yes, please.
Yes.
I think I also feel very strongly that we need to get a full-time planner on staff to start advising on some of these projects that we need to do. I mean, it's clear tonight that we are in desperate need of new sources of revenue. And I think in order to get some of these projects off the ground, whether they're infrastructure improvement projects or some new developments to generate new tax revenue, we've got to have a planner who can manage that process, make sure we're not skipping steps, make sure we've got the scope right from the get-go, and things like that. So I think we're just going to we have to figure out how to pay for it and make it a priority in the budget.
Well, I would suggest that if we approve, if the council approves uptown planner, we have a budget that's already been delivered that does not have an appropriation for a town planner. So if you make a determination that we're going to hire a town planner, then we have an obligation to tell the town manager where we're going to get that money from. And it's something that's been going on in this town for many years, started way back even in the town meeting. If somebody got up and said, I would rather have a new typewriter in the health department instead, well, we have to take, well, that money's got to come from someplace. So take it out of what budget? So I think it's very important that we address it that way. I understand the importance of the town planner, and I happen to agree with you, but it's a case of where we're going to get the money. Jim.
I can't agree more, and it's been on our discussion for 3 years, and it's not kicking it down the road. I guess people could say it is kicking it down the road, but, it's, and I don't know what, there's been no money associated with, so I don't know what the projected income would be, but let's say it's 60,000, I have no idea. And then you have to add on benefits to that, so now it's 90,000 or whatever it happens to be. And we just have to be aware. Now, the Finance Commission goes through a process. We ask people to come in. Council's obviously welcome to come in and make a recommendation. And obviously to have an asset and a liability, it's got to even out. So you have to be able to say, I think we should have a town planner for 60,000 and benefits for 25, and I think we should take that 85,000 from someplace else. There also was a project once the Finance Commission comes through with a budget back to the council. There has always been amendments made on the floor by council, which they have every right to do too. It's also very hard to understand when the schools and town manager said that the schools recommended 1.1 million. Well, the schools had recommended 2.3 million increase. So they've already pared it down, knowing that the money's just not there. When the town has 1.4 million to give out and they're asking for 2.3, they've done incredible homework to get it down to, I think, 1.1. A lot of those are mandated positions. And we've talked about the ferry. on and on and on and on and on. But, and a lot of people say that, get rid of the ferry, that will solve all the town's problems. It's $100,000, which I think in this budget is no money right now.
Zero.
Well,
Just to make it,
the opposite. We're actually billing the ferry for inbound
right,
costs.
the ferry would be treated like every other enterprise fund in town, where they are paying for their own indirect costs, and potentially in this upcoming budget. But, you know, I'm sure the schools would come in, I'm sure Superintendent Howard would come in and say, we could really use that 90,000 for more sped teachers and to try to reach the mandates deemed, and to try to lower class size and try to lower the AP class size and try to have SAT programs to increase our scores. And I'm sure every other department in town could do the same. So I think it's a great and honorable suggestion. I would love to do it, and I would love to try to find a way to do it. But I think for us to mandate that it's done, it just puts a lot more on the table for the CFO. I think it's something that, as counselors, we should try to come up with an idea if that's what we deem necessary, but it has to have an offset.
Councilor Agnew?
I don't disagree with what Councilor Lettieri is saying. We're in a really difficult position. I did reach out to a couple of planners in town to find out what salary ranges are for this position. It would be around a $65,000 to $80,000 salary. And I understand that planners in a lot of communities are able to write for and obtain grant money to fund large portions, or at least part of their own planning salary. And so these are we need to start exploring grant money. I don't know if that's been looked into. We need to look at other areas where we might be able to raise revenue in town as well.
Of course, I also agree with Councilor Lettieri here. We have to come up with a mechanism for funding this. I don't know necessarily if it is slashing something that we already have, or trying to think what other assets that we have. And there was a lot of talk, a lot of the community meetings, a lot of people who are skeptical of seeing some of the buildings being developed. There are communities who have a betterment tax kind of situation where you know, we could recoup some of that money, especially if we're investing in the infrastructure down the center, and we can share a little bit of the profit that is made by developers. There's a lot of different creative ways that we can look at it, but you know, again, if everyone is saying we're not getting what we need and we need more money, the planner is the one who's actually going to get all these empty buildings that have been sitting here for years and years and years to the finish line. It's not us. It's going to be the expert who is able to sit down with property owners and neighborhoods and come up with the compromises, not petitions, but conversation. And I think we're missing out on that. That this planner is going to pay for itself 10 times over in revenue that it creates. So I think we got to look at it as a return on investment that it has, both from financially, but also in the comfort level of the people who live in the neighborhoods where these development opportunities exist.
Just back in November, we had someone do a salary survey. He's been working on it. He submitted a draft to me. He did include a planner's position, so I can share that with the council as far as the range in the region, and he compared them against 12 other communities, so it gives us some more backup.
Michael?
Yeah, I'd just like to say that I disagree with Councilor Lettieri's approach and view on that, and I agree with Mike here that this is planting a seed. This is, if you're looking for an increased revenue for the schools, which we are, and which I am, or increased revenue for the town in other areas, this is where we start. We gotta sacrifice in the short run and bite the bullet and plant the seeds for growth in the future. The empty buildings that are sitting are not raising any money for us, and it seems like a small investment for a great return. And I think that we really got to consider it. If there's a way to fund it, or if there's a way to get help in other areas, which I've heard discussed, in other agencies, other government agencies that could help us, great. But one way or another, this is really an important step in the growth of the future of the town.
Anyone else wish to be heard? Okay, we have a motion that was tabled until tonight. Councilor Lettieri exercises his right to postpone it. So there is a motion on the floor. by Councilor Lacerda that the town council vote to fund a full-time planner for the town or take any other action relative thereto. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
2 noes, it passes. You want a roll call? We'll take a roll call.
Council Ingman?
Yes.
Council Callow? Yes. Council Christopher? Council Terry?
No.
Council Soto?
Yes.
Council McDuffie?
Yes.
Council Conti?
Yes.
Vice President Boncory?
I believe we need one, but if we don't know how we're gonna pay for it, I have to vote no.
President Vecchio?
Yes. Under new business, discussion of Cable TV Advisory Committee. Believe it or not, the town charter has a position of a Cable TV Advisory Committee that has never been filled. We do receive complaints from time to time relative to Comcast service, rates, etc. And even though, you know, the experts will tell you you can't get anybody else into Winthrop, RCI happens to be going into Revere, and RCI is in Boston. So I thought it would be important for the community to fill this position and this committee to do some research relative to rates, relative maybe hold public hearings, because that's the original Cable TV Advisory Committee's function, was to hold hearings every year where residents would have an opportunity to explain how they like the service or dislike the service and complain about the rates. So I will be looking for volunteers to serve on the Cable TV Advisory Committee. Just give the town hall a call, send it, you can fill out an application, and we'll consider you for the Cable TV Advisory Committee. Also under new business, because of the timing of the petition that we received today, within 2 weeks it has to go to the planning board, and we have to act on it within 30 days. If we wait 2 weeks, we're going to miss the boat. So I would like to entertain a motion to refer the petition that we received on the CDB, to refer it to the planning board. Motion to refer. It's one motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Appointments. I do have one here someplace. There it is. That the town council accept the appointment made by Town Council President Ron Becky to appoint Jack Dowd as a member of the Parks Committee for a term to expire in June 30th, 2021. Take any other action thereto.
Make a motion, we accept the president's recommendation.
Do I hear a second? All in favor? Any discussion? No? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Congratulations, Jack. Thank you. Public comment.
Just one.
You gonna thank us? Okay. You got your committee now.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman. I'm referring back to the Quality Street response from the town attorney. I think that it's been established that the town attorney, which this was not addressed to the town or signed by anybody, but I think it was established by the town manager that the town attorney is Copeland Page.
Yeah, K&P.
The reason I wanted to establish that is because the other opinion that I referred to previous tonight was also written by Copeland Page using the same title research group. So you have your attorney not a different attorney, not something that I got. Your attorney and research group has two different opinions about the property at 141, 151 Walnut Street. I'd like to have a committee put together so that everybody can understand why there's two different opinions, and everybody to understand what this land can be used for. Thank you very much.
President, it would be a matter of personal business. I felt appropriate to come on this side of the table. Last Saturday, I'd just like to thank the community and everyone that supported my sister, Maureen. Our family appreciated everyone's outpouring of support and their thoughts and prayers that are with her during this difficult time, and she really enjoyed the event and really enjoyed seeing all the people there to support her. So I just wanted to thank the community and all the volunteers that made that happen. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to be heard? Really? Sure. Okay, public relations. Heather Engman, you have a meeting tomorrow night, Precinct 4?
Precinct 4 meeting tomorrow night, 6:30 at noon.
Okay. And also on May 8th, the municipality vulnerability listening session, which is tied into...
It's tied into the MVP program, it's tied into the CRB that we did Deer Island. It is at 7, not 6 o'clock.
7 o'clock at the Lyceum. Okay. Anybody else? Public relations?
Just something from CASA, early breaking news. I think put it on your calendar as another fundraiser for them. Cornhole for the Cause, tentatively scheduled for June 9th, Ingleside Park, from 11 to 4.
I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good night, ladies and gentlemen.